can't move on till I let go. Till I let go, I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go. I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go. Swear I won't forget this, why do I regret this? In my mind reckless, thoughts are feeling endless. Sitting up I'm breathless, anxiety's infectious. I feel so defenseless, betrayed and embarrassed. I hate being open, I hate being broken. I feel like an ocean filled up with emotion. Anger ain't a potion, rub it on like lotion. I can feel it soaking, reopen, the scars have awoken. I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go. I can't
What's up?
till I let go.
Let's bring down that music a little bit. I'll probably just turn it off fully. What's up? Howdy, howdy. Welcome, everybody. We'll give everyone a couple minutes to funnel in here. Different time. I'm going to let my cat out. Yo, what up, Mega? Yeah, different time this week, so I don't know if we'll have our regulars or not. Pretty crazy time of year for everybody. Trying to figure out kind of the last couple weeks before the students arrive. So there's just a lot. But I appreciate everybody taking the time to stop by. How are y'all doing? What's up? Yo. Hey, everyone. Planning your tryouts? Yeah, for sure. I wonder if I can put some background jazz. Nah, I don't like that. Whatever. How's everybody doing? How's everybody else doing? I am feeling a bit not overwhelmed yet, but I got a long to-do list that I got to get done. And it could be a lot. It could be a lot. The Google Sheets got himself. There you go. Oh. Da, da, da. Oh, thank you for the follow, Winter Hunter. We'll go ahead and get started a little bit here. Trying not to overwhelm myself. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. Y'all are doing a lot. All the TOs right now and those admins are, it's crunch time before the floodgates open. And then it's like straight feeling like we're drowning for the next 3 months. So we excited about that one. No, but hopefully y'all can keep on top of this, because I'm definitely feeling it, and this is my third year as a director or coach, and I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing some days. But we'll get there. I want to beat myself up a little bit. I feel like I wasted some of the summer, but then I'm like, I couldn't do the stuff that I have to do right now before now. So I don't know. It is what it is. We try our best. But today we're going to be talking about 2 topics. I thought they were related. The first one, I want to do a recap of the EsportsU Coaches and Directors Summit that just wrapped up. I think there's some conversation happening right now in their Discord as their final thing. But the last 3 days, they've done basically 2 hours each day of some panel presentations, some professional development. I wanted to kind of give an overview of that. My initial thoughts, although not as important. But that's the reason I moved my stream. My stream was originally, as always, on Tuesdays, and it was right during that. And I wanted to watch. So I moved it to today, and I appreciate everybody who kind of found me on the normal day off from my stream. And then when I was thinking about this EsportsU thing and hearing presentations by CSMG and NECC today, I thought, I haven't talked about the licensing companies that are really behind the scenes in most of the scene from a collegiate esports perspective. And I should recap that. I should do an updated one, maybe edit a little quick video, add it to my YouTube. So I'm doing that as well as my as kind of the second part of the show, and I'm excited for that. I think I also had somebody ask about that last week, or I told them about it last week, and I had an outdated graphic, so instead we're just going to make a new one today. So that should be fun. I'm excited to talk about that. I love the business side and kind of unveiling the curtain a little bit to allow everybody to see kind of what's going on in the backside. I think is really exciting and fun, and I find joy in educating the scene and shining lights on things that might not be in the spotlight of people's minds per se. So that'll be fun. But let's talk about this EsportsU Summit. I would say, first of all, general thoughts. I thought it was really cool. There were some really great presentations. I really enjoyed the case study on Maryville's program. That presentation was really good. Dan and his team talking about their program, where it's at, where it's going. It's obviously very service level. You can only fit so much in an hour when it comes to that. But I really liked. There's some good nuggets in that presentation. I think the current state of collegiate esports presentation with Chris Postel, Dan Clark from Maryville, and Doc Haskell from Boise. I thought it was a really good presentation. There's some good conversation on there. I think I would have liked to see a little bit more diversity on that panel, but overall I thought the content was pretty good. Enjoyed the thoughts. I think it's always interesting and a good thing to keep tabs on or to realize is individuals' thoughts on what the future of collegiate looks like and what the goal should be are can be so vastly different based on their surroundings and the school that they're at, et cetera, and their experiences. And I saw that a little bit on that panel. I think, it was just interesting because you've got some people on that panel who aren't necessarily seeing the competitive side of esports, like the hyper competitive side of esports, as the long-term play. Some are looking at it from a student involvement perspective, maybe a retention perspective, or even a recruitment of STEM students perspective. But then you've got others on that panel who see the competitiveness is the end goal and the goal of their program. And it was really interesting to watch. I don't know if anyone had any thoughts on that stuff. But those were my two favorite presentations. I enjoyed seeing the NECC presentation today. I don't think I've ever heard or seen Gloob talk on video before. It's an interesting thing. I've heard his voice so much, but got the video. I don't think I've ever heard Jacob talk before. It was good to see. It was good to hear. Will the VOD be posted anywhere? Yeah, I'll the VOD of these are always posted on YouTube, but if you're talking about the VOD of the presentations, that's a question probably for Pauly Hype. I think they're going to have VODs. It might even be on their Twitch channel. I think if you go over to EsportsU on Twitch, they might be there. Yeah, there's some good presentations in there. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. NECC. I don't know if Gloob's in chat. I don't think he is. I just have to because I'm spicy. When Nace decided to adopt a division structure, Gloob went out on Twitter and said, "Oh, look, people are copying what we're doing and blah, blah, blah. We started everything." Today he announced that they're starting a competition council, and all I could do was laugh because Gloob made such a big deal of it on Twitter about ideas being shared, or not even that, but like making a better product based on what some other people might have been doing, or whatever. I don't know. It was just funny. I just laughed. I think it's a really good move for the NECC to involve more members, to get more voices from their schools. So excited to see how that gets implemented. You were mad at him for that whole situation. I think some people, I think a good amount of people were, or at least like rolling their eyes, not necessarily mad. But no, overall, NECC announced they're growing again. No surprise really there. Valorant is definitely a title that Gloob is focused on. He's transferring as a student to Columbia College to coach that team, their Valorant team. So no surprise there. I'll actually be leading that competition council. Nice. I'm sure Chase Newcomb was involved in some of those conversations as he serves on the NACE competition council with myself. But again, excited to see some of that movement. It's interesting that I think it's cool to see that although there is fracturing in the space in multiple different leagues, they, at least two of the bigger ones, seem to be moving towards the same place. Like, I don't know. We're going to get to a point where like it's two leagues that do the same thing and look the same for the most part. I mean, there's going to be some small things, but we're getting to a point where they're pretty similar, and the changes they're making are pretty similar too, because we all kind of understand what's best for our students in the space and our schools. And that's cool to see. So, yeah, but overall thought the presentations were good. The event was good. I think it lacked some marketing, some hype before, not to use hype as Pauly Hype. But it kind of got, it seemed like it had a marketing jump where it's kind of when I joined the Discord like a month ago, and then we didn't hear anything until like this week. And that probably hurt a little bit. I think the viewership was between 20 and 30 concurrent the whole time I was watching. But overall, I liked it. Mega says less leagues is not necessarily a bad thing as long as they do what schools and students need from them. Also, Riot Leagues still separate for the time being. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I thought the event was good. they did throw in an awards ceremony at the end, which I thought was a nice. There's positive, nice nod, but also we didn't know like were there finalists, was there voting, who decided the awards, if you will. They called their like MVP things like their favorite player, like their favorite Smash player, which probably opened up the ability to pick not the best performing player, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I think it seems like a lot of groups want to have their own awards and use that social media push. But I'd argue no one's doing it well from a collegiate standpoint. So hopefully as the years go on, all these groups that are doing esports, including NACE, which technically I'm very involved in the awards, although now it'll be someone else, is not very great either. But hopefully as the years go on, we'll start to see some better awards events. I think we could do way better. Yeah. So I think that's about it. Anyone else have thoughts on the EsportsU stuff this week? I liked the women in esports panel, although I'm always frustrated when I feel like the panel was more of a tokenization play for a PR push than something that they truly believed in or truly wanted to push. We didn't see a lot of marketing when it came to that panel or a couple of the other panels. So there's a lot of discussion on Twitter about that panel and what we need to do moving forward as an industry to keep uplifting more diverse voices without it just being a token. I think that's the right word, tokenization play. You could tell, like as a viewer or like as like an audience within some of these events, like you can tell when the intention is a PR move versus the intention is to have a real conversation about something that needs to be discussed, like toxicity in gaming and creating a safe environment for everyone. And versus here's the women in esports panels. See, we had women on our panels, which is not what we should be aiming for. So I'll get off my soapbox there. Cis white male here, just always talking. But I think Sari from Full Sail has some really good thoughts about it. I was just thrown off when I first got into the first presentation and it was like 3 white dudes. I'm like, whoa, I've never like had that moment where I'm like, what? I don't know. Sorry. But overall, yeah, like I said, event was good. Is there a place to hear her thoughts? Yeah, you can follow her on social media. I believe if you go to like her tweets and replies, I don't know how deep it is. Let me find if I can find that thread. It was a thread. I'll find that thread. Let's find it. It seems like this is a pretty consistent issue, but this one, copy link. Here's her thread on Twitter. Her tweet is, one of the most beautiful parts of the collegiate esports space is the diversity and representation. Coaches, leaders, players are coming from all genders, all races. It's an incredible community full of marginalized voices. Let's raise them up and hear those voices. And I think this was probably in response to that panel. I'm assuming, but there's some good conversation around all of that. And something that just needs to keep being talked about and we need to do better on. So, Voice says, if anyone's interested in DEI, Cora just recently posted some in-depth thoughts. Yes, Cora did. And I read the entire white paper. We have the thought of having Cora on my show at some point, but we're both so busy. We've been like every week, one of us was just not doing something. So, and that was in conjunction with Voice. I believe you can find it in the Voice Discord. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But it's a really good paper that I think is worth a read if you're in collegiate. It's a very academic paper, and it's long. And I think that's probably part of the reason why there's not more talk about it, but it's really good. It's really good. What's up, Doug? Yeah. So yeah, overall, EsportsU, I thought it was a pretty decent event. Short. I like the short 2 hours each day for 3 days. Like, that was really nice. The 4 o'clock time worked well for me. It was interesting. I don't think I would try to type in chat to see if the speakers. I think most of it was pre-recorded. I tried to type in chat to see if the speakers were in chat, and I don't think most of them were not, which was kind of sad and disappointing, because I had some questions and it would have been cool to have them active in chat. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a decent first event, and I won't be mean or angry because I'm feeling the love today. Was supposed to be live. Okay, it was supposed to be live. I heard it was recorded like the day before. Like, some of those panels were recorded the day before. But yeah. I think I'm trying to think what else. What other panels? Let me see if I can find on the Discord if the panel schedule's on here. Yeah, schedule. I didn't go to any of the breakouts. They had breakout sessions after. Yep. Watch that. The Maryville case study was good. Commissioners Roundtable was like 4 traditional athletic conference commissioners who support esports to various degrees, talking about traditional conferences and their thoughts on esports. It was nothing new, nothing surprised me, but it's always like kind of worth a chuckle to hear some people who know nothing about esports talk about esports. And some of them, like, straight up, you can tell that, like, they do not, they're not in their element. Let's put it that way. But yeah, that was interesting. Conversation. The future of collegiate today was 4 people from CSMG. They kind of talked about the CECC, the Commissioner's Cup, and some of their stuff. Yeah. I don't know. There was, yeah. NECC, like I said, I talked about, and then that award show. So yeah, that was it. That was So yeah, it was good. There was some good stuff in there. Not the worst professional development event I've gone to, and I thought it was okay. There's a lot of room for improvement, but I enjoyed it. And for those of you who went and were in chat, good for you. I don't know. That was it. All right. So we talked about EsportsU events, wrapped that up. Cool stuff you there. But now let's talk about the licensing companies, or a better term, licensing, because it worked better with my title. They are Collegiate Athletics Multimedia Rights Companies. Basically what they do is they sell the media rights to colleges as well as conferences to make money for their company and for the school. And I'm going to talk through them and why the heck am I talking about them? Well, because you've heard of them before, or you've heard of the companies and tournaments they run. And it's really interesting because in the last couple of years, most of the big players in this space have entered esports. So the big players on this multimedia rights thing have entered the space of collegiate esports. And I think it's good. I think it's valuable for you all to know. So let's talk about it. All right. If my scene will transition, it will. For this one, I already wrote everything down because I didn't want to forget anything. So I'm going to talk through this a little bit, walk through this. If you have any questions, thoughts, throw them in the chat. We'll talk. I have the chat up on that screen. You can see. But let's talk about the three. So the big three when it comes to esports and mostly collegiate branding, multimedia rights in general. The big three, you have Playfly, you have Learfield or Learfield IMG, and you have CSMG. And some of these you might not have heard of. I don't know. You should have at this point. We've talked about a lot of this. Playfly, although I have the Playfly Esports thing, they're actually not just esports. They're Playfly sports properties. They own like a couple different companies, but the latest is their investment and expansion into esports with Playfly Esports, which is that they purchased CSL, and now they have changed to Playfly Esports, and they technically, I'm not aware of the agreement, even though I'm on the CC, I haven't seen the agreement. Somehow there's a split ownership of the NACE Star League between Playfly and NACE. So that's where Playfly has entered the space. We'll talk about the partnerships a little bit later, but from a collegiate standpoint, Playfly operates with the NACE Star League. What they do is they go out and sell sponsorships of the NACE Star League. They make money from that. The split, there's a split there with NACE, and surprisingly enough, NACE Star League, I don't even know if this is. They didn't lose money last year. Fun fact: NACE Star League did not lose money last year, and that's big news. So in esports, that's pretty rare. The next one we go over to is Learfield. This is in no specific order. I literally threw them up on my screen as I was working through them. Learfield is the ones who have started Level Next. So you know the super obnoxious social media campaigns of schools trying to make money, and they retweet all the Level Next stuff 20 times. It's for Level Next, which is owned by Learfield, Learfield IMG. They've also created the Madden National Championship, which if you have a Madden player, you know of. And then finally, they started getting into Rocket League with that Level Next Rocket League tournament, Spring Showcase. I don't even know if they're still doing Rocket League. I think they are. They probably are. I have interest. I have some like crazy conspiracy thoughts of like Level Next is trying to make a play at exclusivity. Who knows? Hell on Pause, thank you so much for the subscription. FIFA 2. All right, so Level Next is getting into FIFA. So their play in the space has been traditional athletic games with Madden. Rocket League's kind of a little bit of an extension, but you can tell that Learfield's really trying to lean into the sports game titles. And it's probably a play for the big D1 schools when esports kind of gets bigger, that they'll get in that. I'm assuming Level Next is in contact with EA about their NCAA football game that's coming out, I believe next year. I'm sure there will be some big splash with that. I know no one personally at Level Next, so I have no inside information. I'm just looking at the space. Most likely there's a massive play there. Hey, they used the red penny from the Learfield I in the middle and the Level Next E. Never noticed that. Oh yeah, that's cute. So this little E thing here, it's the same there. That's cute. Yeah, a little bit of a extension there. And then finally what we have is CSMG. So CSMG, Collegiate Sports Management Group, another one of these multimedia sports companies. But what's interesting is that in recent years, CSMG has really leaned into esports, especially in the last year or so. My guess is that they've realized that there is a massive opportunity for them to make a name for themselves, using esports as really the driver. Esports might not be the end goal or the cash cow, but it starts conversations with schools potentially in the future. It could be the cash cow. They might think that could happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't even predict a year from now what college esports will look like. So whatever these the big brain analysts and folks are coming up with, I not quite there yet. But CSMG, I don't know if you know this, but they own, to my knowledge, now none of this is end all be all. Like, disclaimer, if something is a little inaccurate, it's inaccurate. So don't trust me. Don't take my word for it. But this is this is my knowledge of the space. So EsportsU is a property that's owned by CSMG, to my knowledge. They also own, CSMG also owns the Collegiate Esports Commissioners Cup. So they've created this national league that used to be called the Collegiate Esports National Championship, until they realized that, the publishers won't allow this, which is interesting because they were promoting the CENC. I had a conversation with them at an event. I'm like, how can you have the national championship? Because it's pretty clear in all licensing guidelines for all the publishers that you can't use national championship. And the comment was along the lines of, just try to shut us down. I'm like, that's not going to work. And about a month later, they changed it to the Collegiate Esports Commissioners Cup. And they still frame it as this national championship, quote unquote, but it's that. But those are the owned properties. So when you ever see EsportsU or CECC, it's CSMG. And they might try to make these look different, different brand extensions, etc. They're not. I need more than an hour's notice when you're going live. I'm sorry, Wiki. You're never even here anyway during the normal time. And that has been going on same time every Tuesday for 8 months. And you never show up. So don't give me that sass. You can get out of here. What up, coach? All right. So let's this is the owned properties. So these are your flagships. What their long-term plays are, you'd have to imagine that a collegiate licensing company's long-term play is selling, or a media rights company is selling media rights, whether that's sponsorships or broadcast rights. And we're seeing a little bit of that. From Star League's perspective, we're seeing that they basically own the league, or at least half of it, and then they're selling sponsorships. They're creating more broadcasts to sell more sponsorships. CSMG is creating they're attempting to create a premier event that pulls a ton of schools and hopefully to sell sponsorships. They hosted that the finals in Atlanta. They had Barbasol as a sponsor, Skillshot, Ghost Gaming. The Atlanta Falcons were a part of it. That has been the play right now, I guess, is just building this up as something big. And they've jumped into it. It'd be interesting to see the financials of that Atlanta event, just throwing that out there. Not super confident it was as successful financially as I think they might have hoped. But year one, you kind of got it. It is what it is. But I heard, it was a cool tourney. I think a lot of students enjoyed it. I don't see it as repeatable. We'll see where they go. They mentioned trying to host their West conference something at Boise. They mentioned Maryville maybe as a finals place. I think it was finals. Maybe it was Midwest. I was like half involved. Yeah, we'll see how the event changes from year to year, because I think all of these leagues, if they do something big year one and make a splash, it most likely costed a ton of money and they didn't make anything back. So then you got to look at year two. First of all, does it even happen? And second of all, how does it change? And most likely it'll be smaller than the year before when it comes to an expense perspective. So just keep an eye out on that. You left for a few. We're talking about just the multimedia companies in collegiate esports right now. Specifically, I'm talking about CSMG and CECC a little bit. Could have been executed better. Trophies were cool. CSL talked a bit about this at NACE, how LAN events lose money. Yeah, LAN events are one of the biggest expenses for NACE Star League. We'll see how it changes. They basically they sent out an RFP to. They basically had an open. This is NACE Star League had an open RFP for schools and companies to bid to host the finals. And we'll see how that changes things. Just got your resume done with Chris. Nice. Need to find a way to sell more tickets. I don't think it's so interesting talking with a lot of sports commissions specifically, but also like arenas and event space plate people about esports, because all they know of, if they know anything about esports, is like sold out arenas. Like that's it. They have no context that if it's pro or college or if they're different. All they know is sold out arenas. So they automatically think sold out arena. You see a lot of big events that'll go into a big arena and it's just like empty, or I don't know. It's crazy to me. And by no surprise, CECC did not have much of a crowd. So yeah. If we're talking about CECC, yes, it is coming back. They did announce that, but I don't think they announced the location yet. 66 was rough. Yeah, all of them. It's crazy. We as esports, collegiate esports right now, and maybe forever, is like we need to figure out ways. At least organizers need to figure out a way to monetize their league and outside of ticket sales. Like it's just not going to happen, at least for the next 5 to 10 years minimum. So it's something that for some reason, maybe even people in the space too, but like event space places do not recognize or understand. They needed to do a better job at maintaining a live spectator audience, but like who? You can't maintain an audience that doesn't exist. Like even look at like Twitch streams of any college right now. Like Boise State has great production, but like their concurrent viewers for a normal match is like what, 30 to 40 maybe? I haven't checked. I'm just guessing. But like Florida Southern, when we broadcast, like our concurrent viewership, it's like 15 to 20 maybe. Like you can't fill a stadium with 15 to 20 people. And that's remote people who don't have to pay to go. I think there's a lot of opportunity to grow that a little bit. And what I really want to do, I haven't been able to find a study, but there was a Netflix documentary about the University of South Carolina women's basketball coach. And they talked about how like when she started, no one came to women's basketball games. Now they're like national contender, sold out arena, like every home game. And I want to learn more about how she did that and how she created a dedicated fan base, because I think we could learn a lot from that. But it's something we just have to realize, like fans will definitely not travel, but like, how do you create an audience, like even on your campus? Like, how do you even, that's probably a topic for another show. Gateway was free to enter as a viewer. Yeah. Gateway, even Gateway, like maybe 100 people tops viewing, like most, and like, that was a great event. It was awesome. I loved it. And it was well put together, but like, we're just not, Collegiate Esports is not pulling viewers. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to break your hearts. LAN events are so expensive. They are very expensive. Renting spaces is insane. It really is. But there are opportunities to cut some of those costs if you work with like partner schools or local sports commissions can sometimes get you a good deal, but they're expensive. And then you're talking about like traveling, shipping equipment, running broadcasts, running admin. Like there's just a lot of expenses. So yeah, they had tons of teams and the stands were, they had tons of teams there. The stands were full if they got all the teams to watch somehow. Possibly. I don't know. Well, I think me and my friends were the only people who weren't associated with the team. Thanks for the follow, Doug. Proud of you. Shout out Gamecocks. Yep. There you go. Go Cox. One way is probably to attach Collegiate to a pro event, have collegiate competitions open for the pro competition to generate more collegiate fans. Maybe. It's pulling a lot. I think what will help the scene as a whole is the adoption from the D1s. I think that will really help. I think you've got a ton of fans for D1s in traditional athletics. And if you can capitalize on that fan base to push into esports, you'll see a pretty massive adoption rate in comparison to what we have now. You look at like a basketball game for a lot of our schools, like family, friends, maybe 100, 200 people. If you're a small NAIA school or a small D3 school, like, and we're esports. Like no one knows, not many people know we're out here. I know we like to imagine that we're a big deal and everyone knows what esports is, but they don't. Like we're still at a very early adoption rate. D1s won't adopt esports. Okay. So yeah, Mr. Michigan State University. But I think even further, not only just the D1s adopting esports, it's gotta be adopted under athletics. For the fan engagement and the resources to cultivate a fan base at the level that I think it's capable of doing, I think athletics would make it a lot easier. And until that happens, we're gonna have a lot of inertia or a lot of resistance trying to create that. It's gonna take a lot more work. So, yeah, not team specific fans, but just collegiate LOL fans. Many more had quite a few of those conversations. More D1s coming out of the build programs now. Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement from the D1s, but the question that I have is like, how many of those are athletic departments? Because I know that's a sensitive topic for some people, and some people are very strongly against esports being under athletics. But that's where budget conversations can quickly escalate much further past what a conversation for budget looks like under student life or rec and wellness. And I have a great hope that the NCAA football game, when it comes out, if some of these multimedia companies or if the publishers create something unique, especially with the D1s and something really cool, I think it could really, really explode collegiate esports. And that is exciting. Although what could happen is like the game comes and nothing happens, which would suck. But like, just think of the possibilities of like Michigan State having a NCAA player compete against Michigan's player as their games or as their respective teams in NCAA football, and you somehow create a massive fan event around it or promotion around it. I think that could tap into some things. What that looks like or how it's delivered, I don't know. It's difficult, but yeah, mostly Rec Well. Yeah, I think Rec Well right now is most of the momentum from the D1 perspective. I'd give a lot of credit to the Rec Well national body. I think it's NERSA, something like that. And I think Akron is on there. I know Sibby from Michigan's on their like esports task force, and I think NERSA. I think it's NERSA. Yeah, NERSA. They have their own esports task force, and I think they've really pushed some of the conversation around esports, and that's gotten Rec Well departments excited further. USF is Rec Well, yeah. And student affairs, student life. Okay. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like, I love the adoption at the D1s, 100%. I just realistically, or from my perspective, I think if they're under those departments, the cap on resources and investment is lower than what it could be under athletics. But the initial startup investment could be higher and more exciting. I mean, they have more of an incentive to support esports than I think athletics does at this point. So yeah, not saying it's wrong. I'm just realistically looking at those types of things. Yeah. So we'll see. And maybe at some point when we see the Rec Well and student life D1s adopt it within their departments, at some point maybe some national brand or national league comes in and makes an exciting offer for athletics to take it on. So, cool. Let's talk about partners. So we have these three, but there's a lot more to these companies and what they're doing in the space than just the properties they own. And that is something that I want to talk through. Doug says, I don't think it would go away from the others, but the competitive side would come under athletics and the rest under Rec Well, just like intramural club sports. Yeah, 100%. That would be the ideal situation. Does that actually happen from a political standpoint? Like, and how that happens on every campus could be dirty on some and clean cut on the other. only time will tell. But there are definitely schools we were just talking about in the Michigan server where athletics doesn't always play nicely or have the greatest reputation with other departments on campus, and there can be a lot of clashing. And the idea of splitting what one department created and giving part of that to another department, it'll be messy on some campuses. I don't know when it'll happen, but I think what Doug describes, I think, is the ideal scenario. But we'll see. All right, let's talk about partners. So partners. I'm going to talk through some of these stuff. Like I said, their own properties are not the only thing that these folks are doing in sport, in the space. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Playfly first. So Playfly, we talked about NACE Star League. So NACE Star League is a partnership with NACE. Put that down there. Yeah. I'm using OneNote for the first time. We'll see how it goes. Partnership with NACE. So Playfly, that's that partnership. There's talks that there's almost a deal, a longer term deal between these two being signed. Wiki says when I start winning, athletics pays attention to trophies. That's true. They also pay attention to money. And no one has solved there's not a massive amount of money to be had yet in collegiate esports besides tuition revenue. So, if there was other sources of income and opportunity there, then athletics is definitely going to be knocking down your door. But okay, so NACE, what they also do is Playfly has actually entered the high school space. About 2 years ago, they partnered with the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, which is the high school governing body for the state of Washington, and they became the provider of high school esports. It was just recently announced that they are doing Arizona. What's interesting, I don't know about Washington, but definitely Arizona. Playfly, the non-esports side, actually represents Arizona in multimedia rights, like this group. So it kind of made sense that like, okay, we're using you for multimedia rights and you're going to run our esports for us, probably at little to no cost. Maybe there is some cost, but they just had to beat Playfly. Playfly was the official supplier prior to this announcement. Thank you so much, Wiki, for the sub. Testing your office productivity skills with Office or OneNote today. Yes. I was going to do it in Illustrator and I'm like, my PC can't handle that. So I started researching. I found OneNote. I was like, oh, I didn't know that could do that. So we're trying it. But I appreciate that subscription. Let's get that sub train going. Yeah, we'll see. But it's interesting to see this little momentum here as we're watching the space. I think it's really important for all of us to keep tabs on these groups, see where they're heading, where they're investing, because right now they're all collecting and building portfolios that are pretty massive when it comes to collegiate esports. Like it's difficult for any of us to compete in leagues that are not kind of ran or owned by these folks. Big fan of these sub emotes. Yeah, dude. I had a plan of having an emote for every guest I had on, but they stopped at you. Doug, thank you so much for the sub. I appreciate it. A hype train is close. Oh, snap. But Arizona, the high school scene, it's really important to watch, keep tabs on this, especially when they lost, Playversus lost Arizona to Playfly. I thought that was an interesting potential look into the future as Playfly grows. The California League is actually represented from a multimedia perspective by Playfly, but Playfly lost to NACEF. So NACEF recently won. It's public. They won the ability to run the California League. What's interesting is that NACEF, I believe, is going to be utilizing UGC to run their California group. And I don't know if UGC has, from an admin perspective, run Scholastic. Hey, thank you so much for the cheer. Hell on Pause, the subscription from Noah, And we got a hype train. That might be my first hype train. Post U, high school, and K-12 is the future for these companies. Lots of potential there. It potentially is. I don't know if it's the future necessarily, but it's an opportunity. I think getting in on the collegiate side, I think is a more lucrative opportunity in my opinion from a money standpoint, but I could be wrong. I don't know I don't necessarily know what these deals look like from a traditional sports perspective. Like, what do you get if you're the multimedia rights holder for like the Michigan High School League? Like, do you just sell sponsors for their live events? I don't know. But yeah. So, and a lot of these companies offer more than just selling sponsorships. They'll do like marketing and signage and everything. So they do a lot. Oakland trying to copy and paste. That website is atrocious. UGC is so bad. No comment. But UGC will be, to my knowledge, will be running the California State League. And depending on how that all goes, who knows if NASEF can keep that deal or if Playfly will win out. I like NASEF. But I think the long-term play, I think, lies more on Playfly side for some of this stuff. These two haven't even looked at high school or done anything in high school yet. I don't know anything, Antor. I'm unsubscribing. Oh, darn. I tried. Keep this high trade going. You do what you do. So Learfield IMG. Do I have anything else in here? Learfield and IMG Learfield is really sticking to what they're doing. I already talked about the Level Next Madden tournament and the Rocket League thing. Like, that's their thing. They're building their own stuff. I believe they have a couple full-time staff members who are specifically on esports and developing those. And their play is around building their own league. And they're instead of getting in the bloody fight over League of Legends and Overwatch, they've really extended into Madden, FIFA, you said now. So the EA plays good. When they start looking at 2K, I don't know. I'm assuming 2K is probably something they've talked about, but can they get developer licensing and a conversation going? Who knows? But I think that's a smart play in my opinion. Like those traditional, like, yes, they don't have a ton of support right now in collegiate esports and the esports community in general, but there's a lot of players in those games, and it can tie back to a traditional sports audience really well. GSEF tabled at CECC. Don't know what their relationship is. Antor, our washed up coach, is trying to carry Bilski. What jungler should he pick? Nidalee. Nidalee is your one trick, Mr. Carl. Where's Polyhype when you need him? Yeah. Polyhype is working. I believe they're still doing their roundtable thing. CSMG. So CSMG, in my opinion, has thrown out the widest net from a collegiate esports perspective. They have created a lot of different things. They've partnered with a lot of different people. And that is an interesting, they're now building their own league with CECC, but their league is very much focused on qualifier national championship or qualifier in-person regional playoff and then national championship. It's not a league-based format. They are much more focused, it looks like, on broadcast hype, on live events, but their partnerships align with the regular season. So let's talk about it. CSMG, we already talked about. They own EsportsU, which is basically, like, from a social media perspective, is ran by Polyhype. So whenever Paul tweets something, immediately EsportsU likes it or retweets it, and it's because it's him. So, fun fact. I mentioned that to someone, and they were like mind blown. They're like, "Wait, what? I just thought EsportsU loved Pauly." I'm like, "No, it's the same person." So yeah, fun. Is there any interest from NACE into acting as a qualifier tournament for CECC? I'm assuming not. NACE is doing their own CECC with their championships. Hype train success. I received a level 1 train emote. Choo choo. Yeah, they're doing the same thing. There's no interest there. NACE has picked up some championship berths for developer leagues, developer sponsored leagues, but there's no interest, I think, at this point in feeding into CECC because it's the same thing. Any updates on NACE CLOL partnership? Not really. I don't know how much of there's still ongoing talks. But what's interesting is I don't even know what I'm allowed to talk about. I haven't signed anything, and anything that isn't allowed to be talked about, I wouldn't know. I don't think. But it looks like, from my understanding, is Riot is from a partner conference perspective is pushing away from having partner conferences that have national influence, and much more trying to focus on stable partner conferences that don't change every year. So take it as you will. But that's where they're heading. Yes, that's where they started, but they kind of they ventured out a little bit with NECC and I think ECAC. From my understanding, that is probably being pulled back at some point. It sounds like Riot doesn't want teams competing in multiple leagues. So with like a qualifier in the fall, a team could play in 3 different qualifiers, and then whatever conference they get in, they can choose. Riot doesn't want that. So see the LOL schedule. There is no LOL schedule right now. Talks are still ongoing. There are positive conversations happening. It just has shifted in the direction of that conversation recently. Be back next week. Got to carry Carl. All right, good luck. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate the sub. All right, so let's get back to CSMG. CSMG, who do they partner with? I actually do I have the website up? Let's see if it's just easier to look at this. I just have the picture here. So they own CECC, they own EsportsU. I have one big graphic for this right now. And this is their associations they partnered with. I don't know why they call ECAC, whatever. Actually, can I crop this? Let's crop this. Boom, better. Although they still have the NECC logo, the old one. No, that wasn't a crop, bro. Come on. Okay, there we go. That worked. NECC, I'll throw in the new logo so y'all understand. That's the old NECC logo. This is the new one. So CSMG has partnered with these folks. What those partnerships look like, I'm sure vary. But they're partnered with them to various extents. It's my understanding that those partnerships probably revolve around multimedia rights deals and basically earning the ability to sell sponsorships, sell memberships, and potentially sell their broadcasts. PostU says CSMG provides the broadcasting shoutcasting support for ECA matches, as I understand it. What's interesting is that CSMG also in their partnership sells ECAC memberships. So I had a conversation with CSMG at CENC or the CECC, the regional qualifier that happened in Orlando, and had a good conversation, decided to hop on a call to talk about esports. I thought we were just like having some conversation. Ended up being a sales pitch for ECAC. And I had to stop them like, wait, why are you selling ECAC membership? And if I wanted an ECAC membership, I just go talk to ECAC. Like what? They're selling ECAC memberships. So part of their deal, I'm sure, is selling memberships. I'm sure it's selling sponsorships. It's all just acronyms. I know. And it's all the same 3 companies plus the publishers with different names in front of them. But the NECC, I think this is a relatively newer development, or at least it's developing as it goes on. East Coast Conference, I think they probably do media rights, but they also connected the ECC with Generation Esports, who runs their competition. Generation Esports also runs the competition for Peach Belt, and I'm assuming that deal was brokered or at least started the conversation by CSMG. CSMG also today say they partner with High School Esports League. Not really sure what that even means. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these partnerships or deals were just like handshakes of let's work together and help each other, and like that's it. And maybe they're a little bit more developed. Maybe it's like, hey, we get the rights to sell sponsorships to your league or your broadcasts, and we'll give you X% of whatever we sell. I don't really know. There's not a ton of sponsorships being sold in a lot of these leagues. I think Naystar League and then the CECC event were kind of some of the first that really started pushing sponsorships. But that is there. CSMG, ECAC, NECC, and then NJCAA. So CSMG also represents the actual NJCAA, like the non-esports, the traditional sports side. They also represent the traditional ECAC. So it just kind of natural extension. How much CSMG like influenced these groups to add esports, I don't know. They might have been the driver in those conversations. Who knows? Some are handshakes for sure. Yeah, I would assume there's a lot of cross-pollination and like, hey, let's put your logo on our website. You could put ours, and everyone's happy. And it's interesting. It's so interesting. Who else do I have on here? All of the companies list their brand partners, which are basically their sponsors. Doug's in chat. Their CDW is listed as a brand partner for CSMG. So is Control Meal Supplements, which is like Paul's massively sponsored by them. Barbasol, who sponsored CECC. Really interesting stuff. What's kind of interesting to watch behind the scenes is the platform LeagueSpot. LeagueSpot has been with the ECAC for a couple years, and they have pushed into Naystar League. The other competing platform right now with most of these groups is Generation Esports. You might not use Generation Esports in the national stuff, but I believe they run NJCAA. They definitely run Peach Belt and East Coast Conference on the back end. And I don't know who else, but Generation Esports is making big moves on their platform side. Doug says, but it feels like it's changing. Everyone wants dollars and lots of them this year. Antor, put my logo on your website. Generation Esports runs HSCL. Yes, they do. Generation Esports runs HSCL. They own the varsity, or they started the Varsity Esports Foundation, where Bubba is the executive director. They also own like a ton of curriculum. I don't even know what the company's called that created their curriculum, but they have like an army of like 20 ex-teachers and principals who've created esports curriculum. If anyone knows how Generation Esports is funded and how much money they have left, I would love to know, because they are, as of recently, like from what I can see, is they're blowing through money. They have expanded and grown significantly, and they have a massive staff. Money is going out the door, and I don't know when the money's going to start flooding back inward, but I'd be interested to know. And Gen E just acquired MGL, Military Gaming League. Interesting pickup. Never heard of that before, but good for them. I don't know where this money's coming from. Like, whatever. And I don't know who the driving force is. I have to think that it's an investor or a group of investors who's driving the growth of Generation Esports from a business standpoint, because I struggle to think it's Mason who's their current CEO. I struggle to think that. He's built HSCL to what it's at, but my conversations with Mason in the past, which are far and few and not very pleasant for either of us, I think. But I don't think he doesn't come across to me as someone who would be driving this much change and these many acquisitions. There's got to be something else happening on the back end, and the back end needs to probably have money. Who it is, I don't know yet. I haven't seen anything. Maybe I need to look again. What's interesting is the Varsity Esports Federation or Foundation, which is what they started, that Bubba is the executive director of, is a nonprofit, and those tax documents are out there. Looking at how much they've raised, how much they've actually spent on doing what their nonprofit is set out to do versus the salary of and the other expenses of running the business. They're not a very good nonprofit from like raising money and doing charity, but that can be another call. But their board of directors is a lot of the leadership from Generation Esports, and I'd have to take a closer look at each of those board of directors and see where they come from, and maybe you can make a connection there. But those are like the deep dives I do in my free time, and I'll save you all. Maybe I'll do that episode later. But CSMG partnered with Generation Esports. And what we're seeing is a lot of partnerships, some consolidation from the partnership perspective, and kind of people picking sides, if you will, or at least these three companies like grabbing up as much as they can, or partnering with people they trust, or in Learfield's perspective, creating their own thing. And it's really interesting to watch and see how it develops because like even 2 years ago, we didn't have Naystar League. We just had Playfly who had purchased CSL at the time. And that was kind of the extent. They weren't doing high school a couple of years back. Now they are. Learfield Level Next is fairly new, last 2 years. And there's conversations that Learfield is approaching athletic departments trying to convince them to add esports, or have in the past try to convince them to add esports into their athletic department through increased money from their multimedia rights deals or whatever. Yeah. And then CSMG is like, I don't know. It's so interesting because CSMG is the only website out there of these three where esports has a very dominant presence. So like on the top of their page, they have, I'll just show you. Top of their website here, they have 6 drop downs or 6 menu items, 2 of which are esports related. You have EsportsU and you have CECC. But the other websites, like if I look at Playfly. So if I look at Playfly's website, like esports is not even, it's down here and it's one of the 5 arms that they have. It's not dominant. It's under businesses. It's the 4th one. So like it has a presence, but this is like the most. Their landing page is esports. The VEF conversation would be an interesting one to have. Get Bubba on. It would be interesting, but it also might be awkward from what from what I've found. Like his salary is public information, and I have it in my salary sheet, and how much they've raised and used on business expenses versus what their mission is. Their percentage is very low in terms of how much goes to their actual charity efforts. It's interesting. I don't know if I could have that conversation with him on. I think it'd be awkward for both of us, but maybe we need to have it. I don't know. They're not doing anything like super bad per se. They're just like, if you're donating money to something, like probably donate it to something else. The IRS 990 is interesting. Like 4 times more went to salary than scholarships the last year. Yeah. And the executive director makes more than most college esports directors make. But yeah, so CSMG really leaning into esports, and I don't know if that's like they see something we don't, or see something I don't. Maybe they're more bought in than I am, or they're kind of the smaller. They're a newer company. They're 7 years old. I'm assuming IMG Learfield and Playfly have been around probably for a lot longer. And maybe the esports is their way in. It's the way to make a name for themselves, to get conversations. Because if they have a team competing in their CECC, that could be a really good conversation starter for that athletic department. Be like, hey, Michigan, your team competed in our thing last year. Here's some pictures of them. We'd love to have a conversation about maybe a broader support for athletics. I don't know. Mason's in here. Oh, snap. Dang. Okay. Hey, all. Mason from Gen E. Happy to answer questions, clear things up. Also, I don't remember having unpleasant interactions with you, Adam. Oh, okay. Sounds good to me. We'll go with that. We have press releases around how much we have raised and from who, with an awesome team we built that advised me, but I'm very heavily involved in the strategy. Always open to feedback. Yeah, good for you. You guys are spending a lot. Bubba hasn't raised much because his main function for us is scholarship distro. Okay. Interesting. I'm glad somebody pinged you. Who did it? No. Yeah. From my perspective, y'all are spending a lot of money. Good or bad, just always the question of like how sustainable is that, and hopefully the money starts flowing back in, you know. Yeah, I mean, Bubba's very pleasant. He's a pleasant dude. I love looking at 990 forms, like especially our colleges. Go look at how much your college president makes, and if you want to feel bad about yourself for a little bit, depending on the school. Part of the reason there is that scholarships are paid out over time, and so not reflected in the last year that's publicly available. That'd be interesting. That would be interesting. You don't get the whole picture from 990s. You get a pretty good one. The other sad part is that they're a year behind, so when like right now, like you might have just gotten the 2021 990, maybe. I don't even know what the last one. It might be the 2020, but it's definitely lagged behind. Yeah. The concern still stands there with but this isn't a Generation Esports topic, Mason. I need to pull it back. At least VF has the 990s in there, still waiting to see NASEFs. Yeah, good luck. I can't find them anywhere. And NASEF isn't even NASEF anymore. It's the Worldwide Scholastic Esports Federation. And that doesn't have any tax returns. It only has a listed address, which I'm assuming is Todd Harris's home address, because he is now the chair of the board. Yeah, if anyone can find NASEF's tax documents, that would be... It used to be... Well, what's interesting is that, like, the last tax document that would be out was probably when it was still under the Samueli Foundation. And then it... I don't know if it officially became its own entity, and then now it's its own entity as the Worldwide Scholastic Esports Federation. It's hard to pull. It would be hard to pull any information from that. And in that state of things, they partnered with HSEL, so like expenses fluctuated so heavily, and I don't know. That would be a mess, but it'd be so interesting to look at. Thank you for the follow, Camus. Antor is refusing to show us his tax returns. I mean, I got nothing to hide. They have my money. Trust me. Yeah. I do not have a nonprofit either, so must be under audit. My wife, that's what gives her nightmares, is the idea of being audited, just because of how much paperwork and work it would be. We also have dual credit curriculum that could be used as a rev driver for colleges. Yeah. I talked a little bit, it was probably before you got in here, but how another arm of Generation Esports is the curriculum development. And you all have, it seems like, an army of like 20 ex-teachers and principals who developed this curriculum. And I'm assuming, I mean, obviously there's a play at some point, if it's not happening already, to sell that curriculum. And hopefully, I think there's a couple groups in the space who have leaned on the hope that would be a massive revenue generation funnel at some point. And I think there's probably some instances already, although I'm not aware of them because I'm not super involved on the academic side, especially at the high school level. But I'm sure there's some revenue generation already happening with most of those companies, at maybe a district level. I don't know if it's a state level yet, but there's definitely funding out there from like a CTE perspective to purchase that type of curriculum. It's an interesting play. It's one I can't speak to. Super interested to learn about this, the dual sports stuff or dual credit stuff. Yeah. For sure. There's a couple, I think NASEF also developed some curriculum. They use, their scholars, to develop that curriculum. And then that IP is owned by NASEF. There's a lot of criticism and some questions out there regarding that practice. But NASEF's developed some curriculum. Generation Esports has developed some curriculum, and I think Edge, which is Joey Gariziak at Shenandoah, their consulting company, has started developing some curriculum, but I think it's more aimed at the college level. There's a couple people playing that game, and then there's probably some companies we've never heard of that have developed curriculum. Like there's a couple like textbooks that have been developed from people like that I've never heard of, but again, not on the academic side. Hit up Mike. That link I guess doesn't work. This is different than what NASEF has. Okay. Different than what NASEF has. The dual credit thing doesn't sound like something NASEF had. I think NASEF only had like curriculum for the high school level. But back to the conversation about licensing companies. Actually, I've kind of talked about all of it. There's a lot of conversation and there's a lot of conversation and partnerships happening on the CSMG side with all these companies. I think for the most part, CSMG seems to be more interested in developing their Commissioner's Cup, but also like kind of having an arm in the ability to sell sponsorships or even memberships from an ECAC perspective for these groups. They're not as, it doesn't seem like they're as deep in it from a tournament, like a league ops perspective as the others. They're more arm's length, let these people run things. I think it's just really important to keep an eye on this and how these develop. And whenever one of these companies has something esports related from a press release that gets out, or you're hearing conversations between new groups or within these groups, it's really important, I think, for us to kind of keep an ear on and kind of see what's going on. Because I think it's really telling. Because on the traditional sports side, like these groups are some of the biggest like money drivers for traditional athletics and the money that comes in. They're the ones that make deals, I believe, with like ESPN. I think like they at least help negotiate broadcast deals for some of these groups. They do apparel licensing. They offer a ton of other stuff, like I said, signage at events, and depending on who their partner is and what they're talking about. But I'm assuming when EA created in Madden last year, the year before, like you could play as a player in college, and there was like 4 different colleges, I think maybe 8 this year that you could play in. I'm assuming those deals were negotiated through these companies. What's interesting, I was looking, they picked 2 or 3 schools from each of, at least from Playfly and Learfield. And then the other major player is JMI. And I think they got 1 or 2 schools from JMI. So EA has worked with, from a licensing perspective, 2 of these 3 already to get branding in a game. And that was interesting. There are gazillions of companies never heard of in the space. Yeah. Derailing. Hey, no problem. I'm glad you stopped by. That answered a lot of questions. I don't need these. I don't know these names. I'm out of the loop. Need to do one of the diagrams for Collegiate, like those 6 corps who run all media ones. Yeah, it's crazy. Thank you for the follow, Hubris. It's interesting as you kind of like explore more of the Scholastic space. It's interesting to find out that everything leads back to a couple groups or a couple companies. Like you might, as a new coach, think ECAC and NECC are straight competitors and NJCAA is a competitor and they all are fighting each other. But in reality, they're all like partnered and under the CSMG in different ways. Now, CSMG doesn't own them, but they're partnered with them in some way. And I don't think that's public information. Like we wouldn't see that unless if they did like a PR thing of like, or a case study on their website of like, this is how we partnered with the ECAC. This is interesting. And these are the 3 companies, in my opinion, in the current landscape that we need to be aware of and worried will take over collegiate esports and run things without us having a say. I know that's super doomsday-ish, but I definitely have concerns of like Learfield and how they're operating in within Rocket League. But hopefully Epic has done a really good job recently of being pretty open about non-exclusivity and giving groups opportunities. I don't think they would do an exclusive deal, but who knows? Learfield's Madden tournament has definitely caused headaches for some of these other leagues because it's, to my knowledge, if it's not officially yet, it's pretty close to an exclusive deal for operating Collegiate Madden nationally. So Learfield has, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, gone after exclusive deals, and I think they've done it in Madden successfully. Will that happen in other game titles? Who knows? Maybe FIFA a little bit. I know Naystar League didn't really push for FIFA. We didn't have enough participation last year. But that might be the same now with FIFA as well. One ring to rule them all. And obviously I have the ring. Yeah, well, you have the checkbook, right? Doug and CDW got the checkbook. That's a lie. Don't ask him for more money. Everyone's asking you for more money. Deliver a quality product that would bring CDW value before you ask money. That goes for anyone in the space. Like I don't know. Everybody wants money from a sponsorship standpoint. I am really interested to see what the esports landscape looks like the next 2 to 3 years. And it's not just the Scholastic space. It's like the entire space. As we see the potential of venture capital money and investment dollars starting to kind of dry up. Part of that's the market and financial situation in general. But the other part is, at some point, I think the excitement of esports might slow down a little bit for some folks who've been in it for a couple of years. There's a massive opportunity for growth still. We're so early on. But I'm assuming there could be the potential of investor fatigue is what I'll call it. And which companies can survive without investment dollars? Very few when we look at the overall landscape. But there's a couple in here that I think are sustainable, at least in their current state, without investment dollars. And those are the companies that I look to and am excited about. So it's okay. People can ask away. All right. I'll send you my pitch deck after this. No, I appreciate the subscription. I don't even need to ask CDW. I'm getting funded by Doug. I think there's a little plateau coming, but then it will take off again. Yeah, that's potential. What causes that second takeoff is interesting. I've got ideas. And I know everyone hates the idea of NCAA getting involved in esports, but think of the rapid growth we would see from investments from our college, viewership, broadcast opportunities if they were to get involved. It was interesting because EsportsU had that commissioners panel, and there's at least two of the 4 commissioners said they were involved in the talks with the NCAA and esports a couple years back, and they said they hoped extremely that the NCAA would not get involved. And that's so telling for a commissioner of an NCAA athletic conference that they're like, no, please don't get involved in esports. And they talked about how they didn't want the NCAA to screw things up with esports like they've done in athletics. That could be potential. I'd be interested to know, like, is that truly what the commissioners think? Or do the commissioners think that, like, esports doesn't deserve to be in traditional, like, athletic governance yet? I don't know. We'll never know what people's actual thoughts are, unless if they're Adam Antor and just tweets all of his thoughts. But yeah, it'd be interesting. NCAA will have to be a topic in a few weeks. It could be. I just don't know anything about it. Like I could reach out to Kurt Melcher, who started the Robert Morris program. He works now for a marketing company in Chicago. He led the conversations with the NCAA about esports the last time, who eventually NCAA voted to table the conversation, quote unquote. But he's busy, and I don't know. Maybe I'll do some. I thought conferences were starting to shy away from NCAA. I haven't heard that. I don't know. I don't think that's the case, but maybe. The collegiate athletic landscape is so vast and so varied that, like, I don't know. I don't know. Esports started on college campuses, and esports will be doing good for students whether or not an industry bubble pops. I agree with that. That's good. Kurt has said he thinks if the NCAA is going to explore esports again, it will be because university presidents are asking it to. That would, yeah. University presidents definitely drive that conversation. The other potential is the money comes knocking one way or another. But I don't think the money can be there yet. Unless if, like, I don't know. There's a lot of people who can sell the idea of esports viewership and how much money it could generate and how many viewers are watching esports and get people not in esports excited about it. But when push comes to shove and we actually see some of those products be brought to market, some of those events brought to market, it falls flat. Like it's what we would guess they would become. For those of us who, I guess, have been in the space for a year or two. But yeah, it's either going to be presidents or it's going to be money. And if Kurt's saying it'll be university presidents, I have no reason to argue. I don't think it'll be the athletic directors asking, especially at the D1s. It would be an interesting thing. Mason said there's still a ton of capital VCs need to deploy and funds still being raised. Most will take a hit on valuation for the foreseeable future. Interesting. Okay. It'd be yeah. Okay. You know more than I do on the venture capital funding, or the capital, raising. But yeah, the hit on valuation makes sense. I think we were definitely in a bubble, still kind of am a little bit. Talk to someone who's just heard about esports for the first time and how excited they are about it, and you'll instantly know, yeah, like this is no wonder we're in a bubble. Like people, I've worked with sports commissions like that bring their goal is to bring events to their region. And like the first instance of when I talk to them, it's like they think, okay, let's get an esports event here and it'll fill a hotel. Like the entire hotel will be filled just because it's an esports event. We don't care what it is, just get it here. And you're like, wait, what? No. And the idea of like, let's host a college tournament. It'll fill the stands, because they think it's bigger or at the same level as like an AAU tournament for basketball where they can fill a hotel for a tournament weekend. And it's just like, it's not there yet. The two are very much linked. Yeah. Money and presidents. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it. I might have to, if Noah's still in chat, we'll have to get this edited up and shorter, because we rambled and went on tangents. But I'll have some type of YouTube video about this, these multimedia companies up on YouTube at some point soon. And by the time I upload it, it'll probably be already out of date because of how quick some of this stuff's moving. But it's important for everyone to kind of be aware of. Any questions? Any questions, class? I think it is interesting since Mason's in chat. I think it's worth noting that I think Generation Esports has been making significant moves in the background for quite a while. And when I say like significant moves, I'm talking about like creating a platform for competition. Like no one's really talked about that. Creating this massive curriculum development driving force. No one's really talking about that. Varsity Esports Federation kind of had a little splash when it first came out, but really it's not something in the spotlight necessarily. How dare I edit this down? But yeah, Generation Esports spend a lot of money. You just said someone said that they acquired the Military Gaming League. Yeah, making a lot of moves. And we didn't even talk about eFuse today. Like eFuse isn't even a multimedia rights company, but eFuse owns, we've talked about it, CRL and Call of Duty League. So you've got this fourth company, and then Generation Esports, a fifth company, operating in this space and everyone's trying to kind of feel out the space, what's successful. They're also investing in like what they think will be the long-term play. But there's a lot fewer companies than I think people might realize. I'm editing your interview from 7 minutes to 45 seconds. You interviewed me for 7 minutes? That felt like 2. Dang. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess. Cool. Well, that's all I got. I appreciate everyone for stopping by. The follows, the subs, massive. Really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions or want to chat about anything, let me know. If you have an idea for a show in the future or a show topic, go ahead and put it in the community Discord in the show topics channel. I will put a link to that Discord right now. Hype train. We did hit a hype train. Mason said, happy to answer any questions, help make the scene a little more transparent from what we know in our own little world. Good stuff. We'll be back next time. Hey, appreciate it. Appreciate you stopping by. Pleasantly surprised at some of the answers to your questions. So, yeah, there's a lot of movement on the back end from Generation Esports that I'm paying attention to. You can't sneak anything past me. But none of it's bad. Couple, yeah. Who else is, I don't know. There's a lot of cool moves happening in Collegiate Esports and Scholastic Esports right now that has me excited. Has me excited about the future. I think really one big one for me is Playfly and Nasef both winning the ability to be like the esports tournament admins from Play Versus. Riot going non-exclusive with their League of Legends community rule guidelines. That's massive. Opening up the scene for college Valorant is a cool thing. There's just a lot of exciting news from my perspective for Scholastic Esports right now, versus a year or two ago. There's just a lot of negative news of exclusive deal. Oh, Play Versus kicking out nonprofit leagues. Oh, it just kept going. And now I feel like we're bouncing back. So what does the Generation Esports competition platform look like? Let's see. I can actually show it a little bit. Let's see. Generation Esports. Error has occurred. So this is the platform for what the bro. There we go. All right. We participate in the Peach Belt Conference, which is a traditional athletic conference that I'm assuming pays Generation Esports, but they partner with Generation Esports, and Generation Esports runs the competition side of things. And of course, there we go. Okay. So their platform, basically you have a team, you can create a team. I don't believe I have to have, I do. So you have to have your team, join and create accounts, which is pretty standard, although I don't like it. Just because my kids trying to get my students to do something, and then I have to go back and then I have to add them to teams after. It's such a pain in the butt. I just want to be able to add people. But they have these things here, tournaments happening, NJCA fall, for example. I think there's a couple things where if you go to your team, you can see all your matches coming up. I'm not in any leagues right now, so it's not going to show up as nice. Play times, join tournaments, etc. But this is their platform. Need to get you a demo of our dual credit and platform capabilities. Our product people would love the feedback. Hey, I'm always willing to give feedback. But they've been developing this platform pretty heavily. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot more adoption at some of the smaller leagues. There was talk at some point of them doing more in the collegiate space this fall, but I think those got pushed back or something. So this summer they did a summer series. I don't think it performed as well from a participation standpoint, and they might have pushed back some broader plans. They also changed who is leading their collegiate esports like efforts from Faust to Booker, who is awesome. They're both awesome, but yeah, there were a lot of changes. I don't know if that link is working for you guys, but every time you put an @ for me, it start out, and it's probably a setting I have in my chat. Apologize, because I don't think you can put links in my chat. I don't know. Yeah, this is Generation Esports platform, and they're building that out. So there's movement on the back end, and I think there's some exciting stuff happening from Generation Esports. And I'll have to look to see some of the funding stuff. All right, that's it. All right, I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go play some Satisfactory with some high school buddies. So excited about that. We'll be back next week at normal time, Tuesday. What time do I usually do this? Tuesday at dude, I don't know. I'm always putting Central Time, so it confuses me. Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. Tuesdays 5 p.m. I'm always here. Follow me on social media. I put the Discord in there. I appreciate all you. Have a great rest of the week. Have a good weekend. Couple weeks. If your students aren't already on campus, you only have like a week or two before they are. So good luck. Don't be overwhelmed. Create a to-do list and work through that. Before I go, I always have to find out somebody to raid. So let's find somebody to raid. Who is streaming right now? Oh, dude. Okay, Hell on Pause sub today. So we gotta raid Hell on Pause. Hell on Pause, if you don't know Jason Clark, he's awesome. Super positive dude. He is a subscriber of the channel. So he is getting a raid today. Yeah. Raid has been created. Now I have to wait. Hop in, show him our love and support, fellow esports folk. He coached a high school team, coaching a college team, and just an overall super positive dude. All right. I'll talk to y'all later.